that very soon we will all see the building of the third temple in Jerusalem.
September 2022. 5 red heifers land in Israel from Texas. March 2024. Final inspections complete. 4 pass. Right now, construction permits sit on desks in Jerusalem. The Temple Institute has announced their intention to move forward. Priests are training for a ritual that hasn't happened in 2,000 years. Stones are collected. Blueprints are ready. A $2 million golden menorah sits in storage. Everything needed to build the third temple is prepared. And according to Jewish law, once that red heifer is sacrificed, the countdown begins. This isn't theory anymore. Documents have been filed. Timelines have been announced. What you're about to see are 8 specific preparations that prove this is closer than anyone realizes. By the end, you'll understand why intelligence agencies are watching Jerusalem more closely than ever before. The pieces are in place. The question isn't if, it's when. Before we go further, hit subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you won't miss what's coming next. Now, let's talk about what's really happening. Preparation number 1. The perfect red heifer. Why does a cow matter? Because the Bible says in Numbers 19 that only the ashes of a perfect red heifer can purify priests before they serve in the temple. No spots, no blemishes, never used for work. For 2,000 years, this animal didn't exist. Then, in September 2022, 5 red heifers were flown from a ranch in Texas to Israel. They were raised under strict supervision. Rabbinical experts examined every hair. 2 non-red hairs would disqualify them. 4 passed inspection. They're now at the proper age for sacrifice. The Temple Institute has publicly stated their intention to perform the ceremony. Without this, the temple can't be used. With this, everything moves forward. But a heifer is just one piece. Preparation number 2. The sacred vessels. Walk into the Temple Institute in Jerusalem right now. You'll see over 60 items that haven't been relevant since 70 AD. This isn't a museum. These are functional tools ready for use. The Golden Menorah, 95 pounds of pure gold. Cost, $2 million. It's not a display piece. It's designed for actual temple service. Silver trumpets, calibrated to produce exact biblical tones. Incense vessels made to burn specific spices, listed in Exodus. Measuring cups designed to biblical standards. Master craftsmen spent years researching ancient techniques. They studied fragmentary historical records. They recreated methods lost for 2 millennia. Each item meets specifications from Exodus and Leviticus. The question everyone avoids: why spend millions creating functional temple equipment if you're not planning to use it? But objects need people. Preparation number 3. The priestly training program. Outside Jerusalem, there's a field school in Mitzpe, Jericho. Jewish men from the priestly tribe of Levi train there. They're learning rituals their ancestors haven't performed in 70 generations. Animal sacrifices, incense burning, exact movements and prayers. In 2015, these trainees did something extraordinary. They completed the first authentic reenactment of the Passover offering in 2,000 years. They didn't practice in theory. They actually performed it. Blood was spilled. Procedures were followed. This wasn't symbolic. They're preparing for the real thing. But you can't build without plans. Preparation number 4. The architectural blueprints. These aren't sketches on napkins. These are construction-ready blueprints meeting modern building codes. Electrical systems, plumbing, heating, and ventilation. A scale model exists that you can visit in Jerusalem. It's precise to every detail. The building measures 150 meters by 150 meters. Chamber locations, altar dimensions, Holy of Holies placement. Everything corresponds to biblical descriptions in Ezekiel. But it also includes fire suppression systems and emergency exits. This is a blueprint for a functioning modern building that follows ancient specifications. And who would serve in this building? Preparation number 5. The high priest garments. It took over a decade to create these. The breastplate alone holds 12 authentic stones, real sapphires, real emeralds, real diamonds. Each stone is engraved with the name of one of Israel's 12 tribes, exactly as described in Exodus 28. The gold work took master craftsmen over 2 years. These aren't costumes. They're wearable garments meeting every biblical requirement. But here's the tension. Only one man can wear them. Only one can serve as high priest. And that selection process is about to begin. Garments and vessels mean nothing without a foundation. Preparation number 6. The altar stones. In 2010, representatives from the Temple Institute traveled to the Dead Sea, the lowest point on Earth. They collected stones that had been waiting there for thousands of years. But these aren't random rocks. Deuteronomy 27:5 is specific. Build an altar of stones. Do not use any iron tool on them. Every stone was formed by natural geological processes. No human tools touched them. No metal shaped them. Workers selected them by hand according to 3,500-year-old laws. These stones will form the altar, where sacrifices resume. They're stored. They're ready. They're waiting for construction to begin. But a temple needs authority. Preparation number 7. The Sanhedrin Reconstituted. Most people have never heard of the Sanhedrin. It's the supreme religious council that governed Jewish life during temple times. It dissolved after Rome destroyed Jerusalem, but in recent years, it reformed. 71 members now meet regularly. They're not planning theoretically. They're creating operational procedures for temple governance. A chamber has been designed for their assembly, circular seating, a central fountain. Modeled after the ancient chamber of hewn stone, they're preparing to make decisions about temple service, priestly duties, and sacrifice schedules. Preparation number 8. The supporting elements. A Levitical choir has been established. They perform the exact psalms that accompanied ancient sacrifices. Last year during Sukkot, they gathered at the Temple Mount's southern wall. They weren't rehearsing. They were demonstrating readiness. And there's more. Professor Zohar Amar rediscovered how to produce biblical crimson dye. For 2,000 years, the formula was lost. He reconstructed it from fragmentary sources. This dye is required for the high priest's garments and the temple curtain. It's made from specific worm eggs processed using ancient techniques. A color that vanished from the world has been restored. 8 preparations complete. Red Heifers qualified. Vessels finished. Priests trained. Blueprints ready. Garments created. Stones collected. Authority established. Supporting systems in place. Everything you'd need to build and operate a temple exists right now. So here's the question nobody wants to answer. If everything is ready, why hasn't construction started? 4 red heifers in the proper age window. $2 million in temple vessels. Trained priests ready to serve. Construction blueprints meeting modern codes. High priest garments with authentic gemstones. Unhewn altar stones from the Dead Sea. A reconstituted Sanhedrin making decisions. Levitical musicians performing ancient psalms. Crimson dye rediscovered after 2,000 years. The list is complete. The preparations are done. But the temple still doesn't exist. 5 obstacles stand in the way. And the 5th one isn't political. It's spiritual. Obstacle 1. The Dome of the Rock. It sits on the Temple Mount, built in 691 AD, one of Islam's holiest sites. And it occupies the exact location where the first and second temples stood. Right now, no Jewish construction is permitted there. Any attempt to build would trigger immediate global response. Muslim nations would see it as an act of war. The UN would issue condemnations. Protests would erupt worldwide. This isn't just a religious site. It's a geopolitical powder keg. For the temple to rise, something has to happen to the dome. Either it gets removed, or they find another solution. Prophecy says the temple will be built. So what gives? Obstacle 2. International political pressure. Israel faces scrutiny for every decision. Building a temple on the mount would be seen as the ultimate provocation. Arab nations would unite in opposition. The European Union would condemn it. Even allies would distance themselves. Israeli leaders know this. That's why most stay silent. They avoid the topic. They delay discussions. Because one announcement could destabilize the entire region. But here's what's changing. There are members of the Knesset who now publicly support temple construction. They're not loud yet, but they're not hiding either. Political will is slowly building. Obstacle 3. Division among Jewish people. Not all Jews agree this should happen. Ultra-Orthodox groups believe only the Messiah should rebuild the temple. Secular Jews worry it will provoke unnecessary conflict. Religious Zionists are split on timing. This internal division is one of the quietest but strongest barriers. Without unity, there's no movement, but history shows that division can disappear in an instant. One event, one crisis, one breakthrough, and suddenly, everyone aligns. Obstacle 4. Global religious collision. The temple affects 3 major religions. For Muslims, it's a threat to the dome. For Jews, it's the fulfillment of ancient prophecy. For Christians, it's a sign of end times. Revelation 11:1 says, "Rise and measure the temple of God." Islamic scholars have already expressed concern about the Red Heifers. They understand what these preparations mean. This isn't just about one building, it's about conflicting claims to the same holy ground. When 3 religions collide over one location, there's no neutral position. Obstacle 5. Spiritual warfare. The final barrier isn't physical. Ephesians 6:12 says, "We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places." The temple is where God's presence dwelt. Satan knows what's written. He knows that when the temple is rebuilt, prophecy accelerates. That's why there's resistance beyond what you can see. Demonic opposition, spiritual attack, things happening in the unseen realm. Before heaven touches earth, hell throws everything it has to stop it. But imagine this. The dome is removed or bypassed. A political deal opens access. Jews unite behind the vision. Global religion is forced to accept it, and spiritual resistance breaks. What happens then? Stone by stone, the temple rises. Priests are ordained. Sacrifices begin, and the world watches in shock. Because when that temple stands, prophecy says something else is coming. The temple gets built. Sacrifices resume. But that's not the end of the story.
Very soon we
that's
will
when
all
the
see
countdown begins.
the building
because the Bible
of
describes
the third
7
temple in
specific
Jerusalem
things that happen after the temple stands. And the first one is physical and violent. Event 1. The Mount of Olives splits in 2. Zechariah 14:4 says, "His feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives." This is Jesus returning, not in secret, not symbolically, bodily, the same way he left. Acts 1 says, "This same Jesus shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven." The disciples watched him rise from the Mount of Olives into the clouds. He's coming back to the same spot. And when his feet touch down, the mountain splits, east to west. A massive earthquake opens a valley straight through the center. Scientists already know the Mount of Olives sits on a major fault line. They say it could split at any moment. Zechariah wrote this 2,500 years ago. He described earthquake geology before modern science existed. But he's not returning to an empty city. Event 2. Jesus fights the nations gathered against Jerusalem. Picture this. Every army on earth marching toward one city. Tanks, jets, soldiers from every nation. Revelation 16:13-14 describes it. Unclean spirits gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. This is Armageddon, the valley of Megiddo in northern Israel. Napoleon once stood there and said all the armies of the world could maneuver in that space. At this point, the world is under the Antichrist, a man who promised peace, but brought deception. He controls governments. He controls economies. He demands worship. And when Israel refuses to bow, he gathers every military on earth to destroy them. The armies surround Jerusalem. The city is about to fall. Then Jesus appears. Zechariah 14:3 says, "Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations." But how does he fight? Revelation 19:15 gives the answer. "Out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations." He doesn't need weapons. He speaks, and his enemies fall. The same voice that created the universe with, "Let there be light," now destroys rebellion with a word. And what happens to the leaders? Event 3. The Antichrist and false prophet are thrown into the lake of fire. Revelation 19:20 is specific. the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. They don't die first. They're thrown in alive, conscious, forever. This lake wasn't made for humans. Matthew 25:41 says it was prepared for the devil and his angels. But these two men gave themselves completely to evil. The Antichrist deceived nations. The false prophet performed miracles to make people worship the beast. Revelation 13:13 says, He doeth great wonders, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth. He built an image of the beast. He forced people to take the mark. He made lies look like truth. Jesus warned about this in Matthew 7:15. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. And now their judgment comes. No trial, no delay. Immediate eternal punishment. Mark 9:48 describes it. Where their worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched. There's no escape, no second chance, no relief. The armies are destroyed. The leaders are judged. But the earth itself isn't finished responding. Event 4. The greatest earthquake in human history. Revelation 16:18 describes it. There was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth. This isn't another tremor. This is the planet responding to God's final judgment. Right before Jesus returns, the seventh angel pours out a bowl into the air. A voice from the throne says, It is done. Then voices, thunder, lightning, and the earthquake begins. Every major city on earth collapses. Jerusalem splits into 3 parts. Islands vanish beneath the ocean. Mountains disappear. Revelation 16:20 says, Every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. The largest recorded earthquake in history was magnitude 9.5 in Chile, 1960. It moved Earth's axis by inches. Now imagine one that reshapes the entire planet. This is a global reset. The structure of the Earth itself changes, and when the shaking stops, there's one more target. Event 5. Babylon falls in 1 hour. Revelation 16:19 says, God remembered Babylon the Great, and gave her the cup filled with the wine of the fury of his wrath. Babylon isn't just an ancient city. It's a system, a global network of religion, politics, and wealth built on rebellion. Revelation 17:5 calls her the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. She's drunk with the blood of the saints. She controls kings. She seduces nations. She's the world system you live in right now. And God hasn't forgotten. Revelation 18:2 announces it, Fallen. Fallen is Babylon the Great. Everything she built burns. Revelation 18:8 says, She will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord God who judges her. Her riches vanish. Her towers collapse. Her music stops. Revelation 18:22 says, The voice of harps and musicians will never be heard in you again. The merchants of the earth weep, not because people died, because they can't sell anymore. Revelation 18:9 describes kings watching the smoke of her burning. A global empire collapses in 1 hour. Markets crash. Systems fail. The center of everything is gone. And while the world mourns, heaven celebrates. Revelation 18:20 says, Rejoice over her, you heavens. Rejoice, you people of God. The judgment is complete. The enemies are defeated. The earth is reset. And now something rises that the world hasn't seen in 2,000 years. Event 6. Jesus rules for 1,000 years. Revelation 26 says, They lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. This is literal. Jesus sits on David's throne in Jerusalem. The prayer believers have prayed for centuries finally happens. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. But first, Satan is removed. Revelation 22 says, He laid hold on the dragon and bound him 1,000 years. No more temptation, no more deception, locked in the bottomless pit. And with Satan gone, the world transforms. Isaiah 11:6 describes it. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb. Animals live in peace. Children play safely. Lions eat straw like oxen. Isaiah 2:4 says, Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. Weapons are turned into farming tools. Military bases become gardens. Armies disband. The curse is lifted. Deserts bloom. The land heals. But here's what most people don't know. There are two populations during this time: glorified believers who were resurrected or raptured, and humans who survived the tribulation without taking the mark. That means children will be born, nations will grow, but Jesus rules it all with perfect justice. Zechariah 14 says, "Every nation must come to Jerusalem yearly to worship and keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Those who once mocked his name now bow. And if you belong to Christ, you don't just watch." Revelation 26 says, "You shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him." You rule with him, not floating on clouds. Governing, leading, reigning, 1,000 years of peace. Satan bound, Jesus on the throne. The world finally works the way it was supposed to. But Revelation says after the 1,000 years, Satan gets released one final time. And what he does next